Okay, so let's solve these guys out. So again, same steps as here. Our goal for all of these is to get that x by itself. Okay, so you remember the first thing I did was I drew my line. And some kids look at that. I know a lot of my students have looked at that and be like, ah, that's not necessary. I'm too good for that. I don't need that. But again, I promise you, math isn't about being quick. Math is about being correct and doing it right and doing the steps to ensure that you're going to get the problem correct each time. Okay, it's not a speed. It's not a race. It's just what can you do to get it correct. And so anything that can help you do that is definitely worth it. Okay. So we look at this, okay? 4, again, don't forget, there's a little multiplication in here. 4 times the x number, that unknown number that I don't know yet. 4 times this unknown number plus 6 equals 30. So I need to find that, what the x value is, okay? So again, what's my first step? Well, what did I do first over here? I canceled out this plus 5 with a minus 5. And so I cancel out addition or subtraction first, usually, okay? And so I'm going to do that same thing here. I'm going to cancel out this plus 6. I'm going to do the opposite of plus 6, which is minus 6. Okay, because positive 6 and negative 6, those guys are opposites and they cancel. Okay, but again, don't forget your golden rule of algebra. I did minus 6 here. To keep these sides in balance, I have to do minus 6 here. Okay, and that's what it'll make it in balance. Sometimes you can just draw a line to separate your steps too. A horizontal line, that helps. Okay. So you think about what's left on either side, okay? What's left on this left side is 4 times the x number, okay, is equal to, and then I'd calculate this, 30 minus 6. 30 minus 6 ends up being 24, okay? And so now you have 4 times some number equals 24, okay? So again, what do you do next? Well, here, I canceled out the multiplication with division, right? I just divided that number that was with the x. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to divide both sides by 4, okay? Because dividing the left by 4 will cancel that, and x will then be by itself. I don't have room, so I'm going to do it over here. X is by itself, and then I have to do the same thing to the right side. So 24 divided by 4, again, use your calculator if you need to, but 24 divided by 4 is 6. So again, what we found is this unknown number ends up having to be 6, because 4 times 6 plus 6 equals 30. That's the only number for x that could work there, and that's what we found, okay? So again, first step, draw your line. I call it a border line sometimes. Draw your border line with right along the equal sign there, okay? So now I've got negative 2 times x plus 7 equals 3, okay? So first step, again, usually is to add or subtract, okay? And so this plus 7, I look at that and I think, okay, plus 7, how can I cancel that? What's the opposite of plus 7? Well, that's going to be minus 7, right? So I'm minus 7 from both sides, right? I'm minus 7 from both sides. Hopefully that can just be something you make a habit of, right? Right when you cancel it over here, you immediately write it on the other side too. Okay, that would be awesome if you did that. Okay, so that plus 7 and minus 7 cancel each other, okay? And so I write what I have left, okay? This negative 2 times the x, okay? And then on the right side, 3 minus 7. 3 minus 7. Well, you know, if you're a little bit smart with that, you might recognize, oh, that's going to result in a negative, right? Because 7 is a bigger number than 3. So if we subtract 7 from 3, it'll take us down into the negatives. And it does. It takes us into negative 4, okay? Now, I've got negative 2 times x equals negative 4. Now, the common mistake here is to say plus 2, okay? And you can see why kids would do that, right? Because they see this minus 2, and they think, oh, minus is opposite with plus. And that's true, minus is opposite with plus, but you have to look at how it is connected with the x. It's all about its relationship with x. And it's not being minused from x, right? It's being multiplied. It's a negative number multiplied by x, okay? And so again, always be looking for that. How is it connected to the x? And so this negative 2 times x, I'm going to cancel that by dividing, okay? Dividing. And I'm going to divide by a negative 2, okay? Because multiplying by negative 2 and dividing by negative 2 are opposites, okay? So there we go. That cancels. And again, I do that same thing on this right side, divide by negative 2, okay? Now this is a little tricky, but my x is going to equal negative 4 divided by negative 2, which is actually ends up being a positive 2. How does that happen? Well, it's a negative number divided by a negative number, okay? And that results in a positive answer, just like how a negative times a negative equals a positive. A negative divided by a negative also equals a positive, okay? So that's that one, okay? And now number 3, 5 minus 3x equals 14, okay? The tricky part with this one is you see that x isn't the very first term like the other ones, right? The variable term comes second, okay? And that's okay, but just think about that, okay? Think about what that's going to mean for the order, okay? Usually in my other problems, I canceled out this second number as my first step, right? And I'm not going to do that here, okay? Because if I canceled out this, and that's so common, it's so common. So if you thought to do that, it's okay. But look at what I do here. This is saying 5 minus 3 negative, so 5 minus 3 times x, okay? And so again, you want to think, okay, usually you cancel the addition or subtraction first. And this 3 is not connected to the x by addition or subtraction. It's connected to the x with multiplication. So I can't add this 3 to cancel it, okay? Because I'm going to have to divide that out like I did up here, okay? So that means if I'm saving the 3 for later, I have to cancel out this 5, okay? So 5 is what I'm going to cancel. And now this is a tricky problem as well because so many kids do this too. They do plus 5. Do you see why they would do that? They see this minus sign and they think, okay, 5 minus 5 cancel that with plus 5. But this is not negative 5, right? If I kind of covered up the whole rest of the problem, just imagine that's covered up. This isn't negative 5, right? This is positive 5. How do I know that? Well, there's not a negative in front of the 5, right? If there was a negative in front of the 5, doing plus 5 to cancel it would be the right thing to do. But this is saying 5. So if I did 5 plus 5 to both sides, I would end up with 10. And that wouldn't cancel out the 5, right? I'm trying to cancel it and do the opposite of it. So what I have to do here is think, okay, this is positive 5. I'm going to minus 5 from both sides because 5 minus 5 is 0, which means this is now canceled, okay? And that's tricky. So you got to be very particular with your order and your signs and try to keep track of that. And that gets easier with practice, I promise. Okay, so you minus the 5 here. Again, do the same thing to the other side, minus 5. All right, and what do I have left? I have negative 3 times x equals 14 minus 5 gives me 9. Okay, so I've got negative 3 times x equals 9. Okay, and so now my last step, right? Again, don't add this. This is connected to the x with multiplication. So I have to divide it to cancel it. Okay. All right, notice a lot of kids forget, kind of drop off this negative too. This negative comes down with it because that's part of the number 3. That's saying negative 3. Okay. And so you kids who have a little bit messy handwriting, now is the time to try to make it nice and neat. Okay. So anyway, so this cancels. All I'm left with is x equals 9 divided by a negative 3. Okay. Equals negative 3, okay, because this is positive 9 divided by a negative 3, and so that ends up being negative 3. Awesome. Hope that was helpful. That's a little mini lesson on two-step equations.